check out this video from Big Fry. Concord is already dead on arrival. I haven't really seen many positive viewpoints about this game. Haven't really watched any video. I've seen a lot of titles though. And I was kind of interested in maybe checking the game out. But you had to pay to get into the beta, didn't you? You had to basically buy the game or pre-order it or whatever. And then I saw you had to create a PlayStation account. And I was just like, even though I've got one, I was just like, oh, it's kind of annoying. Really don't like that about Sony, if I'm honest. But it's not a major thing, I guess. But yeah, it was just a little thing that I was just like, I don't wanna. Let's check out if it's already dead on arrival then.
I don't know how many times we're going to see studios spend millions of dollars creating.
One thing that's wild before we get into this, I think Sony bought the dev team that made this game, didn't they? So they've put a lot of money into buying a dev team and then obviously investing in this game, which for all purposes seems like it is a flop because I don't think many people were playing the beta, and they dropped The Last of Us factions as well, because I think really because they didn't know how to potentially monetize it maybe, but it's wild that they dropped that, which would have just been a banger because of The Last of Us fans, and the factions game before was really fun to play. So having a standalone multiplayer game in The Last of Us universe would have been absolutely fire. It would have been a banger game. It probably would have made them a ton of money even if they didn't have that many microtransactions in it. I think it would have just done really well for them to then come on to something like this and to have it fail. It's kind of like, well, I guess you deserved it, really.
Games that nobody wants to play. In the case of Concord, which is the new first-person hero arena shooter, this game was being developed by Firewalk.
Do you know what this game looks like from what the gameplay I've seen? It looks like the kind of game you see in the background in a film. You know when there's a film and they're having somebody playing a video game or something, but they don't actually want to pay for the rights to use a real game in the film. It seems like one of those games, you know? I don't know why. That's just kind of what it looks like to me, kind of like generic sort of slop, really.
Firewalk Studios, who was acquired by Sony, I believe, last year.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
And this is the culmination of millions of dollars spent, so many man-hours into a game that, in my opinion, has so many good things going for it, from the polish in things like the UI, the actual visuals themselves, the sound effects.
It's, as I was saying, it's slop in terms of generic. It's not bad looking, especially on the characters. Like the facial animations on some of the characters is insane. I think they look really good. But just looking at the gunplay, man, and the actual gameplay loop itself just doesn't look all that fun, if I'm honest.
The cinematics that we're seeing in this game, like, you can tell this is a AAA huge production with millions upon millions of dollars spent, wrapped up in a game that is...
And I think worrying about that sort of stuff in a shooter, a PvP online shooter as well, which seems like that's the main part. I think it's got a story to it, but I don't think it has a campaign story like mode, does it? Like, you know, there's not like a story mode and then the multiplayer. There's a story to the multiplayer. I think to spend all that money on cutscenes and the story, it's just kind of like, why? Because if the gameplay doesn't bang, who gives a fuck about the story in a multiplayer game, really?
So uninspired and so generic, and in my opinion about 10 years late to the party, that I have to wonder why it even exists in the first place. If you're watching the gameplay, do me a favor, squint your eyes, and then I'm gonna throw all these other games in here, and it looks exactly like all of those games. Hero shooter, crazy quirky character.
Just less fun though, you know? It's trying to be like the Overwatch type game, but it just looks less fun. Like, for all that there is to say about Overwatch 2 and Blizzard in how they shafted people with the PvE and all the other issues with the game and the battle pass and the characters and everything, I haven't played for a while, so I don't know if that's changed. There's no denying that in terms of a game and the gameplay loop, Overwatch is fire. It's just Blizzard have been fucking up big time, haven't they? So yeah, just looking at it compared to something like Overwatch, it just looks nowhere near as fun. Nowhere near as fun. Hey, what's up, Sutsa?
Characters, they, them pronouns.
Yeah, that's weird as well. Like, why have they... Like, a Sweet Baby ain't been involved with this game. Because, like, why the fuck would they do that? Like, I don't understand that. Like, it's like they're desperately trying to force these new cultural... well, norms, shall we say, you know, the cool thing to do now into these sort of video games. And at the end of the day, the type of audience that they want to court for something like this is young men. You know, it's going to be young men who are going to look at the pronouns in the game and be like, what the fuck, bro? Like, why even have that in the game? So you can, this is what I was talking about, the other stuff just with Hoyoverse, when it came to the whole issue with the characters, races. China don't give a shit about all that sort of stuff. And people in the West need to learn that Chinese companies won't fold when we get really pissy about our cultural expectations of what other people around the world should do with the way we view the new thing at the moment. Western companies will, and it's just such a weird thing to put in, like, as if it's like, hey, look, do we get brownie points for that? We put pronouns in our shooter game that's like, why? It's just so weird.
It has it all. And what I mean by has it all, I mean it has every single red flag that you could see, on top of the fact that a lot
Had a good birthday. Thank you, dude.
of people have been comparing this game to like Overwatch, Paladins, and all these crazy other hero shooters. But the difference is Concord is $40, $49 Canadian if you buy the standard edition. And
yeah, that's what this game, as soon as I saw gameplay, screamed to me, free to play. And I don't even think it would have been a massive success free to play, but I think it would have got a decent amount of people trying it out. But yeah, you know, I think it's 35 UK pounds. I think I could be wrong. I think it's about that, 34.99. Just ain't paying for that. It just ain't gonna happen, is it? Especially now I've seen how dead the beta was. It's just a waste of money now to spend this on launch to play a game that you know is going to be dead on launch. So I think this game is going to go free to play very quickly after launch.
you know, a full-priced fucking game if you buy the supporters. So they're not only uninspired, generic, and like every other game on the market, all those other games on the market are doing it better than this game does, and they're free to play, which is an incredibly hard.
That's the thing, in this industry, in many industries, you either need to be first, you need to be better, or you need to be cheaper. And if you're not first, you really want to be better and you want to be cheaper. Really, you know, and if you're not better, you definitely want to be cheaper. And it seems this game was definitely not first, it's definitely not better, and it for damn sure isn't cheaper. So it's like, how they were expecting to corner the market. I don't know if, like, sometimes PlayStation think, well, we're PlayStation, you know, people expect that PlayStation quality. They don't ever seem to be able to make that happen with multiplayer games. So they really should have gone in free to play on this. They definitely should have gone in free to play. And maybe it might have been a success, because, like, I do think this game is going to be dead on arrival as well, personally. But it might have actually had some sort of, you know, not massive success, but actually been decent enough to continue developing and make enough money that it was worthwhile actually making. But I think these games probably cost them a lot of money. They had to acquire the studio, put all this money into it now for this to happen. Yeah, you know, this game is definitely going free to play. And I think we'll probably see that probably within a year, they'll stop, you know, the service for the game entirely, I think.
Hard sell to somebody to spend $40 on a game where they could go and spend nothing in. So I have to wonder why Concord exists in the first place. It's a hero shooter with everything from the big guy that runs shotgun and slams ground to
so unique, right?
the girl who jumps and lays rockets on the ground to the general, you know, Call of Duty-esque Soldier 76. Like, it's literally Overwatch if you slowed Overwatch down and put it in an arena shooter setting. The game modes you have.
That's the thing for me. It's almost like they were trying to kind of fill in the niche between something like Valorant and something like Overwatch. And it's just like, I don't think anybody wants that. You know, I think a hero shooter, if it's going to be something like Overwatch, it needs to have quite balanced characters, and gunplay needs to be the main factor. And if you're not going for that, it needs to be actually quite quick and energetic and fun. And this just looks like neither of those. It looks like it doesn't know what it wants to be. And that's why it looks so generic as well. Like I said, it just looks like the sort of game that'd be on the background in a film to look like a real game.
Access
it really does.
to is essentially kill confirmed. You kill somebody,
yes, it is,
you pick up their badge, and that's how you get points. And then as you level up, you unlock domination, 3 points. If you hold 2 out of the 3, you collect points. And then you have the non-respawn mode, 5v5. They didn't even bother getting original with them. Man, they could have done like 3v3v3, 4v4v4. They could have done anything else, but instead they went the just absolute.
Also, the maps look really convoluted for a game like this as well. They almost look like Call of Duty maps from a couple of years ago that were just badly designed for Call of Duty, but you could move around the map a lot quicker. Because map design it's beyond the actual gameplay loop itself and the mechanics of the gunplay. It's incredible. It's probably the second most important thing in a multiplayer shooter, isn't it? And just the way this game seems to work, the maps just seem trash for this kind of game, if I'm honest. I know they probably didn't want to go down the route of the payload kind of situation, because then it would be just like Overwatch. But I think that's better than having these sort of maps, because these just look trash, man.
Most generic route possible with every single thing about this game. The one thing that I actually do like about Concord right now is their cinematic quality. It is.
I will give that. The cinematic quality is insane. Even in the menus, like when you're looking at the facial expressions and the animations on the characters, they're top tier. They really are top tier. But then again, though, this is what I said. You're spending all that money on a story in a multiplayer-only game, which is cool to have a story in a multiplayer-only game. I'm fine with having some sort of progression to the world and the lore. But do you really give a shit about that? If the game's trash, who gives a fuck about progressing in a story in a multiplayer-only game? It's like, who cares?
Fantastic. Now, you could bitch about the writing, you can bitch about the quirky characters, you can bitch about the they them fucking pronouns, you can bitch about all of that.
It is weird though. It's like, I get what he's saying, you know, it's not a major thing to be annoyed about, but it's just this weird thing in video games now where if look at it like this, they're putting energy into these things that do not matter to their audience, that they're trying to capture to get brownie points from the media and from people who probably don't give a fuck about playing their video game, you know? And that's the thing that kind of like annoys me in a way as well. It's almost insulting to those people who care about that stuff, because as if they don't know, oh, it don't matter, man. The game can be trash, man. We've got they thems in there, so they're gonna like that. It's like, I don't, you know, most people from any sort of minority, religious group, socio-political group want a fun game at heart. If the game's not fun, who gives a fuck if it caters to your activist mindset? I think only like media activists really give a shit about that sort of stuff. The rest of the game is just gonna be like, yeah, game's trash, moving on.
But the quality level at which they are delivering these cinematics, I have to give them props for. It's something like, as a small, very small dev team, we would love to be able to get to that level and deliver that kind of quality. But the one like big selling feature of Concord is that they're going to be coming out with these weekly or bi-weekly cinematics that give you more backstory.
And I bet you now, after the way the game's going, that will not last more than a month, because that's going to be incredibly, obviously they're going to have a backlog of these things to pump out for the first month or two potentially. That is not going to last, because they're going to be paying voice actors, they're going to be paying a lot of money to cinematic directors, for music, for obviously you know, freaking bloody artists, all that sort of stuff. That is not going to last very long at all. Like I say, this game is probably going to be dead on arrival, so that is going to be one of the first things to get trashed, I'm telling you now.
In lore about these characters, so in
you guarantee month one you'll be getting these cool cinematics of like, look how cool this universe is. By month two, it'll be a little text drop of, oh, the ship crashed, so and so's dead now, we're getting attacked by the new forces, some shit like that. I don't know what the universe is about, but you know, I'm just saying that, like, yeah, I cannot see that going past the opening window of the game.
The same vein as something like Apex, or, you know, something like even Rainbow Six, where we,
unless it is something like that where there's maybe a little 30-second trailer put on their YouTube channel potentially, maybe, and the way they get a little bit of money back is off ad revenue or something.
Get cinematics every season or whatever. This game wants to do it way more frequently and give
not
you
happening.
the lore and the backstory.
Just gonna say
why
no,
we should
not
care
happening
about these characters. And like, I will say, cool. I don't really consider that a selling point, because
No.
I'll be honest, the way these characters are going and the way it's being built, I'm going to find out about which.
I will give them props though. The facial animations are top tier. Like, whoever was working on that, give that person a raise, or get them in a studio that's making, like, you know, a AAA story game, because they deserve to be working on that sort of stuff, not something like this, in my opinion, because they've done a really good job there. This sort of stuff does not matter in a multiplayer shooter, in my opinion.
Characters are fucking one another on a ship here in the next couple of weeks. It's just going to be a bunch of pandering garbage bullshit. But like, aside from that, I have to give them props on the quality level.
And as well, just for the fact of talking about having that stuff on the characters, you know, they, them, pronouns and stuff. How what's the guess that a lot of these cutscenes are going to be incredibly pretentious. I just feel it, you know. There are going to be so many cutscenes that are probably just people are going to be like, what the fuck was that? What was that all about?
That they're delivering this. It feels like it's like some sort of like Guardians of the Galaxy, but in this own little Concord universe. The game itself is as generic as it comes and is in a whole heap of trouble if the Steam charts are anything to go by. For the free beta that is out right now, the game has had an all-time peak of 2,300 players, meaning
that's wild from a company like PlayStation, isn't it? That's wild. And I think, do you know what's probably not just been a big factor to that? The game looks generic. You've got to pay for it, but you've got to create a PlayStation account as well. People forget, a lot of people on PC hate that fucking shit. You know, I've got a PlayStation account, but when I saw that, I was like, why do I have to do that, Sony? I've got it on Steam. Why do I have to create a PlayStation account? Is it so you can get to your shareholders and say, look how many PlayStation Network users we've got? Like, it's kind of annoying. It's like an extra little thing that's just like, why?
You can't even get people in the door if it was free. The game's going to cost $40 US at launch, which means you're probably not even going to capture a fraction of what you're seeing in this beta, because I don't think people actually give a shit. The game is essentially dead. At this point, I'm calling it a year from now, Concord is going to die unless they make a huge pivot. I don't even think going free to play.
I don't think it will save it going free to play, but I think it's all they can do. Because when it comes to a multiplayer game, whether it's like a first-person shooter like this, you know, whatever, an extraction shooter, a battle royale, if you see the numbers are low, you know, if you pay attention to that sort of stuff. I know there's a lot of gamers who probably don't, but I think people do on PC, definitely. If you see the numbers are low, you're not going to buy into that game, especially when you know that the game, your enjoyment in the game revolves around people populating the lobby. Why the hell would you then invest into the game? So it's just a compounding factor. It's like a snowball rolling down the hill. It's just going to pick up speed because people are just like, well, I ain't buying that. No one's playing it. And then less people are buying it. So less people are playing it. And it's just going to get to the point where they have to go free to play, or they just, you know what, fuck it, it's failed. We'll just hope that maybe the odd person here and there doesn't look at Steam charts and buys the game on sale or something.
Play at this point is a hard enough pivot, because even if it's free to play, now you're on the same level as all of these other titles, but you're still not doing it.
I hate making accounts for games anyway, but it's difficult to avoid now. I totally get it. And, you know, a lot of games on PC still do kind of make you do that. But it's just frustrating. It's just like, it's an extra thing adding on to all the problems with this. It's just like, I don't really want to mess with this, if I'm honest. Yo, what's going on, Matt? Oh, have you played this, have you? Is it bad?
Anything to differentiate yourself from the crowd. You could have done such unique game styles here where you're landing on planets.
It's like I say again, and I've just said this, but it's so wild that PlayStation allowed Last of Us factions to get canned after like stringing us along for a couple of years. And this is from somebody who didn't even buy The Last of Us 2, but I would have definitely, if I had to buy the game to get into that, I don't think it was going to be separate, but I would have bought that to play it. Even if I had to get a PlayStation, I might have actually done that. They canned that to buy this company to invest into this. That's just like, talk about the biggest fumble, you know? That's like a 10, you know, you're at the club and a 10 wants it, and then you end up fumbling it and getting off you like some 20-stone freaking mammoth that looks like Gorlock the Destroyer, you know? It's just wild, man.
Trying to capture resource points, let's just say that. And there's 3 different teams. Let's say you're playing for different factions and you want to capture these resources, and you could have taken a page out of Helldiver's book where there's a global war going. You guys just did nothing. It's just a 5v5 fucking domination game mode with they-thems for $40. And this is coming from PlayStation, the same company that canceled Last of Us Factions because they couldn't monetize it enough. It did
exactly. It's just mind-boggling to me, that is. Like one of the most beloved IPs in PlayStation's history nowadays, really. You know, like there's been some amazing IPs over the years for PlayStation, but Last of Us is like, even now, even though I didn't play The Last of Us 2, The Last of Us for me is still in my top 10 all-time favourite games. Amazing. And the idea that they would can that for this, yeah, it's just beggars belief, bro.
It didn't have the bones to make enough money. They literally acquired an entire studio and funded this. When will one of these companies wake up? you're asleep at the wheel. If you think that this is what people want out of...
Dude, that's what I'm telling you, man. This is why so many companies in the East are rising up so fast now. Not just because of the governmental investment and massive investment from companies like Tencent. It's because they don't give a shit about all of this extra shit that Western companies are trying to cater to. And they're just trying to make games that, one, are fun, two, are monetizable, and three, you know, look good and look appeasing to the male gaze. I know that's a terrible thing nowadays as well.
Multiplayer experiences coming from Sony. And
I'm not even saying games need that. I like a good game at the end of the day. I don't care what's in it. If a game's good, I can deal with all the other stuff. And, you know, even having all of the stuff that this game's got in it, I really don't give a shit. It doesn't bother me. If the game's good, I'm here for it. But, you know, it looks like this game's got all of those issues and it's not very good as well.
Worst part is the game itself isn't that bad. It's nothing to write home about.
It's just mid,
but
isn't
it's
it, though?
definitely nowhere near the worst game I've played.
And I can't really say that it's mid because I haven't played it. I am not one of those gamers going to say, a game's trash. I haven't played it, but it just looks mid. You know, it just looks so generic. And it seems like the general consensus is that that's the case. And I won't follow that up by saying, well, it obviously is, because I'm definitely a type of person. I have to try something and play something before I'll even say that. Do you know what it kind of looks like as well? Sometimes it looks like they're trying to make it look a little bit like Destiny in points as well, almost. But it just fails at all of these things.
Played. God, fuck no. It's not even in the same realm. The game does feel okay to play. The hit reg seems to be good. Connections are good. The player controllers feel good. Visual.
That's not enough for a first-person shooter, though, is it, nowadays? You know, it's not good enough that it feels tight and hit reg is good. That's the basic things that you should get from a shooter, isn't it? It's like having a driving game and being like, well, the cars handle good if the rest of the game's trash. That's a good basis to start from, but it's not going to make the game good, is it?
Visually, the game looks good. It just came out 10 years too late. If this would have released in 2014, I think you would have had a hit. But as of right this second, in my opinion, Concord is a been there, done that. And I want to know your guys' thoughts.
Kind of looks like that, doesn't it, really?
Going on right now.
The more I look at it, actually, it does look like that. It's like it's trying to be Overwatch and Destiny, especially as it's using this character. Like, this feels so much like a worse version of Destiny, almost, the way it looks and the way he's moving around. You know what I mean?
2,300
Am I wild
peak
thinking
at the time
that?
of recording this video. It has about 1,200 people playing. I played a few games, jumped in, and I could feel it right off the bat. In 2 of the games I played, I saw the same people. It's already dead, and it hasn't even fucking released yet. And based on their job listings on LinkedIn, they have spent a fuckload of money.
Oh, dude, you know they have. Just looking at the cutscenes, they have spent a crazy amount of money on that shit. You can just tell. The game looks flashy in the cutscenes.
I'm gonna call it. I think Concord shuts down in 365 days or less.
I agree. That's what I said.
Maybe Sony tries to drag that corpse like you.
This shit's going free to play not long after launch. It might even go free to play on launch. If they're smart, they'll do that. I feel like a bit of hubris is going to kick in where they're going to go like, no, trust me, the launch is going to be good. People are going to look at it on PlayStation because PlayStation's going to carry it on launch. And then, you know, because PlayStation IP multiplayer-wise, it's not the best in that sense. You know, they're probably going to be like, oh, sweet, PlayStation IP, first party, you know, it's a multiplayer game. So it'll probably have a, I won't say a decent amount of sales, but enough that they think, well, then people on PC will be like, oh, let's get on this bandwagon. That's not going to happen, man. This game needs to go free to play before it launches. How they'll get around all that sort of stuff, I don't know. But it's definitely going to be free to play within the first 6 months, in my opinion. And I don't think the game's going to last past a year. Maybe 18 months if they're lucky.
Ubisoft tries to do with all of their titles that aren't popular. I don't know. I just think that this game is dead on arrival. Let me know your thoughts down below. While you're down there, subscribe for more content just like this. My name is Big Fry, and I will not see you in Concord.
Big rip, man. Big rip to think that they cancelled factions and then decided this is where they were going to put their eggs, man. That's just wild. You know, they got that basket and that shit got stamped on straight away, didn't he? Yeah, you should definitely check out Big Fry as well if you haven't, guys. Does some great content. Concord is already dead on arrival. As somebody who hasn't even played it, I think I concur on that, actually. That game's going to go free to play quick, and if it doesn't, then it's going to die even faster than a year, in my opinion. The game's done, though. I think it's done, if I'm honest.